The alarm screamed through the colony. Ship Sabak and Dohan Kim knew they were all going to die. He crawled through the narrow maintenance shaft, his hands shaking as he tried to reconnect the damaged power cables. Sweat dripped into his eyes. The air was already getting thin. "Dowie, talk to me." MJI Park's voice crackled through his headset. She was in the medical bay 3 levels below. "How much time do we have?" He didn't want to answer. He didn't want to say the words out loud, but me deserved the truth. Everyone on this ship deserved the truth. 72 hours, he said quietly. Maybe less. The main reactor is dead. Life support is running on backup power and it's failing. There was silence on the other end. Dohan could imagine MJI standing in the medical bay, surrounded by 3,000 people who trusted her to keep them alive. 3,000 colonists who had left Earth dreaming of a new world. They would never see it now. "Can you fix it?" MJI asked. Her voice was steady, but Down could hear the fear underneath. "No," he said. The word felt like poison in his mouth. "The damage is too severe. We'd need parts we don't have. We'd need a miracle." Captain Junho Lee's voice cut into the channel. "All senior staff report to the bridge now." Dowie pulled himself out of the maintenance shaft and started running. His legs felt heavy. Everything felt heavy. The ship that had been their home for 8 months was now their tomb. The bridge was small and cramped. Uno stood at the center, his face gray with exhaustion. He hadn't slept in 3 days, not since the asteroid strike that had crippled their engines and torn through the reactor shielding. Around him stood the other senior officers, all wearing the same expression of quiet despair. "Give me options," Junho said. He always asked for options even when there weren't any. "We can't fix the reactor," Dowie said. "We can't repair the engines. We can't even send a distress signal that would reach anyone in time. We're too far from Earth and too far from the colony world." "The escape pods?" someone asked. MJI shook her head. "They're short range only. Without a planet nearby, they're just smaller coffins." Junho closed his eyes. Dohan had known the captain for 2 years, and he'd never seen him look defeated until now. "Then we have 72 hours, Junho said. "We should tell people they deserve to say goodbye to each other. They deserve to." Captain communications officer's hands flew across her console. "I'm picking up something. A ship, not human. It's close." Everyone froze. Alien ships were rare out here. Humanity had only made contact with a handful of species, and most of them ignored human vessels. "Too primitive," they said. "Too young." "Identify," Junho ordered. "It's Ari. Science vessel, the Illa there. Scanning us." Du felt a flicker of hope. Dangerous and painful. The Nuri were peaceful. They were explorers. Scientists, not warriors, but they were also known for following their laws strictly. They didn't interfere with other species. "Hail them," Junho said. "Tell them we need help." The communications officer worked for several minutes. Then a face appeared on the main screen. Theory looked almost gentle, with 4 slender arms and large, dark eyes. Its skin was a soft blue-gray. "Human vessel," the Venari spoke through the translation software. "We have detected your distress. We cannot help. Our laws forbid interference. We're dying," Junho said simply. 3,000 people. Many are children. We only need parts. Energy cells, anything." The Venari's eyes seemed sad. "I'm sorry, our counsel is clear. We observe, we do not Interfere with natural events. Natural events. Doi couldn't help himself. He stepped forward. An asteroid hit us. Random chance. Is helping us really? Interference. We're not asking you to change our culture or our path. We're asking you to help us survive an accident. The theory tilted its head. I must consult with my crew. The screen went dark. The bridge fell silent. Many reached out and squeezed Dunn's shoulder. You tried, she whispered, but Dune couldn't accept it. He opened a direct channel to the Thenari ship, bypassing the official communications. It was against protocol, but they were dying. Anyway, hello, he said. Can anyone hear me? After a moment, a voice answered, younger than the first. Thenari, I hear you, human. I am Han. I am a junior scientist on the Velara. Han. Dunn said, my name is Duhun. I'm an engineer. I'm 26 years old. There's a little girl on this ship. Her name is Yunji. She's 5. She has a stuffed rabbit she carries everywhere. Yesterday she asked me when we'd see the new planet. I didn't know what to tell her. Human, I am not trying to make you feel guilty. Du interrupted. I just want you to know we're not just numbers. We're people. We have names. We have lives, and we're about to lose all of it because we can't fix our ship. There was a long pause. I understand, Jan said quietly. I will speak to my captain. The hours that followed were the longest of Doi's life. He returned to the maintenance shafts, trying to squeeze every extra minute out of the failing life support. Me organized the medical supplies, preparing for the worst. Yunio sat in his chair on the bridge, staring at the stars. Then 30 hours after their first contact, theory ship moved closer. The communications officer gasped. Captain, there. Extending a docking tube. Junho stood up. Slowly, they're helping us. The main screen flickered on. A different Thenari appeared, older with intricate patterns on its skin. Human captain, it said. I am Captain Velnara of the Velara. My crew has voted. We have decided to break our laws. We will help you. Du felt tears burning his eyes. Around the bridge, people were crying, laughing, holding each other. Why? Uno asked. Why risk breaking your laws? Captain Venara seemed to smile, though its face was alien. Because one of my crew reminded me that laws exist to protect life, not to watch it die. We cannot give you everything you need, but we can give you enough to survive. Over the next 40 hours, the Thenari worked alongside the human crew. He worked directly with Doi, their 4 hands in his 2 hands, moving in harmony as they installed new power cells and patched the reactor. Shielding, the young Thenari was brilliant and kind, explaining things patiently when Dohun didn't understand their technology. Why did you speak up? Du asked during a rest break. You risked your career. Maybe worse. Yan's large eyes met his. Because it was right, because someday someone might need to help my people. I hoped they would do the same. When the work was finished, the Sabok's engines hummed back to life. The life support stabilized. In the medical bay, me watched the oxygen levels return to normal and cried with relief. Captain Nara refused any payment. We helped because we chose to. Theory said, no debt exists between us. But as the Velmara prepared to depart, Doi spoke to he in one last time. We won't forget this, he said. Humanity doesn't forget. Kindness, someday somehow will repay. This hand made a sound like gentle laughter. You owe us nothing, Doyen. Live well, that is enough. The theory Ship jumped away into the darkness of space. The Seabach continued toward its destination, toward the new world. Waiting for them, in the observation deck, little Unjai pressed her face against the window, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Are we going to be okay now? She asked Dohan. He knelt down beside her. Yes, we're going to be okay, and someday you need to remember the aliens who saved us. And GT, can you do that? And GT, Yoonji nodded seriously. I'll remember. I promise. Du looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Thanari were continuing their journey. They had no idea what they had started. They had no idea that humanity always kept its promises. The Sibak sailed on through the night, carrying 3,000 lives that should have been lost, and in the heart of every survivor, a debt was recorded. Not a burden, but a sacred trust. Humanity would not forget. 50 years had passed since the Sibak incident, and Sora Choi stood in the Hall of Remembrance on Hyan's Grace. The planet had been named for the young Thanari scientist who had spoken up to save humanity. Every human child knew the story. It was taught in every school, carved into monuments, whispered as bedtime stories. Sora touched the memorial wall where her grandmother's name was inscribed. MJI Park had lived to be 93, and even in her final days, she had told the story of their salvation. Never forget, she had whispered to young Sora, never forget what they did for us. Ma'am, a young officer approached. Admiral Tijun Han is requesting your presence. It's urgent. Sora's heart sank. She was Earth's chief diplomat, and urgent calls usually meant bad news. She followed the officer to the communication center where Admiral Tijun stood with several other officials. His face was grim. Show her, Tijun said. Quietly, the screen flickered to life. It showed a Thanari world burning. Cities in ruins, ships fleeing through smoke-filled skies, and everywhere the angular black warships of the Kuradish Empire. When did this happen? Sora asked her, voice barely above a whisper. 3 weeks ago, said Juan Kong, the intelligence officer. The Kuradish have been expanding aggressively. They've already taken 2 Thanari colonies. Now they're moving toward the home world. Sora felt sick. The Thanari were peaceful. They had advanced technology, but almost no military. They were scientists and explorers, not warriors. What about the galactic community? She asked. Surely someone is helping them. Tyan's jaw tightened. No one. The Nari have sent distress calls to every species in their sector. Everyone refuses. The Kuradish are too powerful. No one wants to provoke them. That's insane. Sora slammed her hand on the table. The Thanari have helped dozens of species with their technology and medicine, and now everyone just abandons them. Politics, Jan said bitterly. The Kurdish Empire controls significant resources. They're brutal, but they're also rich. Most species would rather stay neutral and keep trading. Sora stared at the burning world on the screen. She thought of he and the young scientist who had risked everything to save strangers. She thought of her grandmother's words, we have to help them, she said. The room fell silent. Finally Tyan spoke. Sora, we're not military power. Humanity has 12 warships. 12. The Kurdish have hundreds. We'd be throwing our lives away. They threw their laws away to save us, Sora said. She looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes. 50 years ago, the Thanari could have watched us die. It would have been easier, safer. But they chose to help. now we have to choose. The council won't authorize it. Someone said it's political suicide. Then we call an emergency session, Sora replied. Right now we put it to a vote. 3 hours later, the Earth Council assembled representatives from every human colony gathered via hologram. Sora stood at the center and told them everything. She showed them the footage of burning Thanari worlds. She showed them the casualty reports, the desperate pleas for help. They saved 3,000 of us. She said, now millions of them are dying. The galaxy is willing to watch it happen. The question before us is simple. Are we? An old councilman from Mars spoke up. I was on the Sabak. I was 15 years old when we should have died. The Thanari gave me 50 more years of life. They gave me children and grandchildren. I vote we help them, whatever the cost. Another voice joined in. My mother was saved by the Thanari medicine. I vote yes. They shared their technology freely with us. Yes, they asked nothing in return for their kindness. Yes, the votes came in one after another. When it was over, the result was overwhelming. Humanity would go to war. Admiral Tijun began mobilizing the fleet immediately. 12 warships. That was everything humanity had. The heavy cruisers Defiance and Liberation, the destroyers Storm and Thunder, 8 smaller frigates. It was a pitiful force compared to the Curatish Armada. News spread quickly through human space. Within days, volunteers flooded the recruitment centers. More people wanted to fight than there were ships to carry them. Young men and women lined up, many of them descendants of the Seabok survivors. Sora watched from Earth as the fleet assembled in orbit. Tajin had chosen his crews carefully. Every single person aboard those ships knew the story of the Thanari kindness. Every single one of them volunteered, knowing they might not return. The galactic news networks are calling us insane. Juan told Sora. They're saying we're throwing away everything we've built for a lost cause. Let them talk. Sora replied, we know who we are. On the day of departure, Sora addressed the fleet. 50 years ago, the Thanari faced a choice: help strangers and break their laws, or follow the rules and let us die. They chose kindness. They chose life. Today we face our choice. Do we stay safe and let our saviors be destroyed? Or do we show the galaxy what humanity stands for? Through the view screen she could see the 12 ships hanging in space like tiny stars, so small, so fragile, but aboard each one crews stood ready. Everyone knows this is dangerous, Sora continued. Everyone knows we might lose. But theory saved us without knowing if we'd ever matter, without knowing if we'd ever be important. They saved us because it was right. Now we do the same. Admiral Tijun's voice crackled through. Fleet ready for jump. Ambassador will bring them home, all of us or none of us. The ships vanished into hyperspace, leaving Earth behind. In schools across human space, teachers stopped their lessons. In homes and offices and city squares, people watch the news. The entire human civilization held its breath. The journey would take 6 months, 6 months to reach Thanari space. Meanwhile, the Kadish continued their assault. More colonies fell. The theory home world's defenses weakened. Day by day, Sora spent those months coordinating with the fleet, gathering intelligence and sending diplomatic messages to other species. She begged them to help. She offered trade deals, technology sharing, alliances. Every Species refused. Why should we risk our people for yours? A reptilian ambassador asked her coldly. The humans are throwing their lives away for nothing. Don't ask us to do the same, for nothing. Sora's voice was ice. We're doing it for honor, for loyalty, for the memory of kindness. I guess those concepts are foreign to you. As the fleet crossed through neutral space, they encountered a Venari refugee ship. It was damaged and overcrowded with families fleeing the invasion. Tane ordered his ships to stop and help. The Nari elder came aboard the flagship. His name was Bongsu, and he had been a diplomat before the war. He stared at the human crew with his large dark eyes, full of wonder. You came, he whispered. The message said humans were coming, but I didn't believe it. Why? We saved you once 50 years ago. We expected nothing in return. We expected nothing either, Taejun replied, but we received everything. We received our lives, our futures, our children. How could we not come? Bongu's 4 hands trembled. The galaxy has abandoned us. Every species we helped, every time we shared our knowledge, they all turned away when we needed them. But you're risking everything. Not everything, Taejun said. If we abandoned you, we'd lose something more important than ships or lives. We'd lose our humanity. Bongsu decided to stay with the fleet. He knew Thanari space, and his knowledge would be valuable. But more than that, he wanted to witness what was happening. He wanted to see if his faith in the kindness theory had shown would be justified. As they traveled, Bongu observed the human crew. He watched them train, prepare, and plan. He noticed something remarkable. They weren't afraid, they were determined. Don't you fear death? He asked a young pilot named Sun Woo Park. Sun Woo smiled. My great-grandfather was on the Sabak. He died when I was young. But he told me the story first. He said theory taught him that life is precious, that it's worth protecting even when it's hard, even when it's scary. I'm not flying into battle because I want to die. I'm fighting because I want others to live. In the tactical rooms, officers studied Kaddish battle formations. Enemy was powerful and experienced. They had conquered dozens of worlds. Their ships were heavily armored and well-armed, but Juan noticed something. They're arrogant, she told Taejun. Look at their patterns. They expect easy victories. They've never faced real resistance, so we give them something they don't expect, Tai replied. The fleet drilled constantly. They practiced maneuvers that would seem insane to conventional militaries. They prepared for asymmetric warfare, for fighting smarter instead of harder. 2 weeks from space, they intercepted a karate communication. 3. The Nari worlds had fallen completely. The home world was under blockade. Theory were losing. Taejun sent a message ahead, broadcasting on all the Nari frequencies. Han, if you're still alive, if you can hear this, we're coming. Humanity doesn't forget. We're coming to repay the debt. On the Nari Prime, in a shelter deep underground, an ancient Thanari scientist heard the message. Han was 127 years old now. His skin faded and his forearms weak. He had lived a long life, never expecting to see humans again. When the message played, Han wept. His young aide Velora held his hand. Grandfather, what does it mean? It means, Hyan whispered, Ed had 50 years ago I made the right choice. The human fleet moved through the darkness like ghosts. 6 months into their journey and still 2 weeks from Thanari space, the Crews had settled into a routine of constant preparation. But the tension was building. Everyone knew what waited ahead. Admiral Tijan Han stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying tactical displays. Beside him, Bangu the Nuri diplomat watched with fascination. In the 6 months they traveled together, Bangu had learned much about humans. What he'd learned both amazed and confused him. I still don't understand, Bangu said quietly. Your entire civilization is risking its military strength for a debt that's 50 years old. Most species would have forgotten by now. Ti-Jun looked at him. We don't forget. It's not in our nature. When someone saves your life, that becomes part of who you are. The Nari didn't just save 3,000 people. They saved all of us because those people had children, and those children had children. My own mother was born on Han's grace. Without the Nuri, I wouldn't exist. But surely after 50 years the obligation fades. It's not an obligation, Tigan replied. It's a choice. We choose to remember. We choose to honor what was done for us. That's what makes us human. In the fighter bay of the destroyer Storm, Sun Woo Park ran through pre-flight checks for the hunt. Time, she was young, only 24, but she'd trained her entire life for this. Her great-grandfather had been saved on the Zabuk. His stories had inspired her to become a pilot. You ready for this? Asked her wingman Donga. Sun was smiled. I've been ready since I was 6 years old. My great-grandfather used to tell me about Hun the Thanari who spoke up. He said courage isn't about being fearless, it's about doing what's right. Even when you're scared. The Kadish have 40 ships, Donga said. We have 12, then we'll have to be 4 times smarter. Sun Woo patted her fighter. Besides, we have something they don't. What's that? A reason to fight that matters. In the tactical center of the flagship, Yuna IM had been studying Kuratish combat data. For weeks, she barely slept, surviving on coffee and determination. As the fleet's chief tactical officer, she knew their survival depended on finding weaknesses in the enemy's approach. I think I found something, she announced. One morning, Tejan and the other senior officers gathered around her displays. The Kurdish have conquered 17 worlds. The last 3 years, Yuna explained. Every single time they use overwhelming force. They surround the target, bombard it, until resistance collapses, then land troops. It's brutal but effective, so they're strong, someone said. We knew that, but they're also predictable, Yuna continued. They've never faced an enemy willing to take losses. Every species they fought has surrendered or retreated when casualties mount. They don't know how to handle opponents who refuse to quit. Ti-Jun leaned forward. You're saying we use their expectations against them? Exactly. They'll expect us to retreat when things get bad. We don't. They'll expect us to fight conventionally. We don't. They'll expect us to value our ships and lives above all else. We prove them wrong. Officers were quiet. What Yuna was suggesting meant accepting massive casualties. It meant sacrifice on a scale that most militaries avoided. The Nari saved us by breaking their rules, Tyan said finally. We saved them by breaking conventional warfare. I want detailed plans for asymmetric tactics. Everything from kamikaze runs to using debris as weapons. Nothing is off the table. Over the following days, the fleet drilled in maneuvers that would make most admirals furious. They practiced ramming runs. They practiced using their own destroyed ships as cover. They practiced coordinating attacks that left ships vulnerable but maximized damage to the enemy. Bongu watched these preparations with growing horror. This is suicide, he said to Taejun one evening. You're planning to sacrifice yourselves. We're planning to win, Taejun corrected. Sometimes those things look similar, but why? Why give so much? Taejun pulled up a file on his display. It showed pictures from the sabak, children playing in corridors, families eating together, people alive. Because theory had chosen kindness over rules. This is my mother, he said, pointing to a young woman in one photo. She's 5 years old here. In 3 days she would have been dead. Instead she lived, she grew up, she had me. The Nuri gave her a future. How can we give less than everything to protect theirs? Meanwhile, the fleet continued, intercepting Kuradish communications. The news was getting worse. The Thenari home world was surrounded. Food and medicine were running out. The Kuradish were bombarding military installations and preparing for invasion. They have days left, Juan reported. Maybe at most, then we'll make it in time. Taeyun said, increase speed, I don't care about the strain on the engines. Get us there. The ships pushed harder there, engines burning bright in the darkness. In the crew quarters, soldiers checked their weapons and wrote letters home. Some were confident, others were terrified, but none of them asked to turn back. A young Marine named Kyeonhai sat in her bunk recording a message. Mom, Dad, if you're watching this, it means I didn't make it home. I want you to know I'm not scared. Well, I am scared, but I'm also proud. The Theni showed the galaxy what kindness looks like. Now we get to show them what gratitude looks like. I love you both. Similar messages were being recorded throughout the fleet. Last words, final goodbyes, but also affirmations of purpose. Every person aboard these ships knew why they were here. Bongo spent his time teaching the human officers about Thenari space. He showed them navigation routes, explained cultural sites, and shared stories of his home world. One evening he brought up an image of a garden. This is the meditation grove on Thenari Prime, he said softly. My daughter was married there. My grandchildren played under those trees. The Kuradish will burn it all. Sun Wu, who had joined them, put her hand on his shoulder. No, they won't. We won't let them. How can you be so certain? Because we're human. We don't know how to quit. With 1 week remaining until they reach Thenari space, Taejun received an unexpected transmission. It was from the Nari Prime, heavily encrypted and weak. When they decoded it, they heard an old trembling voice. Human fleet. This is Heian. I don't know if you remember me. 50 years ago I was a young scientist who convinced my captain to save your people. I'm old now, very old. But I wanted to tell you something. Before you arrive, the old Thenari paused, and they could hear the emotion in his voice. You owe us nothing. What? We did because it was right. But the fact that you're coming, that you remember, that you care enough to risk everything, it means more than you can. No, it means the universe isn't as cold as it sometimes seems. The Kradesh will probably kill me before you arrive. That's okay. I've lived long enough to see that kindness matters, that it echoes through time. Thank you for teaching an old scientist that he made the right choice all those years ago. The message ended. The bridge was silent. Several officers were crying. Taejun composed himself and sent a response. Han, this is Admiral Tijun Han. You will not die before we arrive. You're going to survive to see us repay. What you gave us, that's a promise. Humanity is coming, hold on just a little longer. The final week of the journey was the hardest. They were so close now, but every hour that passed meant more than Ari dying. Yuna refined her tactical plans, San Wu and the other pilots practiced their runs until they could fly them in their sleep. Marines cleaned their weapons and prepared for boarding actions. 3 days out they intercepted another Kaidish transmission. The enemy commander was confident, even bored. The theory home world will fall within 48 hours. Resistance is minimal. This conquest has been disappointingly easy. Tijun smiled coldly. Let's give them some disappointment they'll remember. On the second to last day, Tijun addressed the entire fleet. In less than 24 hours, we'll engage the Kredesh blockade. They have 40 warships, we have 12. By every conventional measure, we should lose. But we're not conventional, and we're not fighting for conventional reasons. He paused, looking at the camera. 50 years ago, the Thanari faced a choice: help strangers and break their laws, or follow the rules and let innocents die. They chose kindness. Now we face our choice. We can arrive, see we're outmatched, and retreat. No one would blame us, or we can show the galaxy what humanity really is. We're the species that doesn't forget. We're the people who honor our debts. We're the ones who believe that kindness deserves protection, even at the cost of everything. The Kratos think they're facing 12 ships. They're wrong. They're facing the memory of 3,000 people who should have died. They're facing 50 years of gratitude. They're facing humanity's promise. We're going to hurt them. We're going to make them bleed. And we're going to show every species watching that kindness is not weakness. And gratitude is not empty words. We're going to save the Thanari, or we're going to die trying. Either way, the galaxy will remember what happened here. Throughout the fleet, soldiers stood straighter, pilots gripped their controls tighter, engineers prepared their systems. They were ready. Bangu found Tajin after the speech. I have no words, the old Thanari said. My people saved yours because it was right, but you're saving us because you choose to remember. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the prime system, and the sight that greeted them made even the bravest hearts falter. 40 Kadish warships hung in orbit around the planet like predators circling wounded prey. Each ship was massive, bristling with weapons, their dark holes absorbing the light of the system star. On the flagship's bridge, Admiral Tijun Han stared at the tactical display. 12 human ships versus 40 Kuradish vessels. The numbers were worse than they'd expected, sir. His communications officer said quietly. The Kuradish are hailing us. Put them through. The view screen flickered to life, showing a Kuradish commander. The alien was reptilian with dark scales and cold yellow eyes. It looked at the human ships the way a hunter might look at prey that had wandered too close. Unknown vessels, the Karate hissed. You have entered a war zone. Identify yourselves and state your purpose. This is Admiral Tijun Han of the Human Defense Fleet. We're here for the Thanari. You will withdraw from this system immediately. For a moment the Karadish commander was silent, then it began to laugh, a harsh rattling sound. 12 ships, 12 primitive vessels. You demand we Withdraw, the laughter grew louder. You are either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. We're an LT Unk and GT human. T-Jun replied, we're both. This is your only warning. Leave now or we'll make you leave. The Kardash's laughter stopped. Its eyes narrowed. Very well. Since you wish to die, we will accommodate you. All ships destroy them. The communication cut off around them. The Kuradish fleet began moving into attack formation. All ships. T-Jin transmitted to his fleet, remember the plan. We don't fight their way. We fight ours, and we don't stop until they break. Or we do. In the fighter bay of the storm, Sun Wu parked strapped into her cockpit. Her hands were steady despite her racing heart. Around her 24 other pilots prepared for launch. This is it. Donga's voice crackled over the comm. You scared yet? Terrified, Sun Wu admitted, but my great-grandfather was scared too when he thought he was going to die on the Sabak. The Venari saved him anyway. Now it's our turn. All fighters launch. Came the order. Sun Wu's fighters shot out into space, joining the others. Ahead, the massive Kuradish ships loomed like mountains. Her targeting computer screamed warnings at her. Too many enemies, too much firepower, survival probability 2%. She turned off the computer. Numbers didn't matter. Only purpose did. The Kuradish opened fire first, and space lit up with weapons fire. The human fleet scattered, refusing to present easy targets. Heavy cruiser Defiance, commanded by Captain Minyu, charged straight toward the largest Karada ship. Defiance, what are you doing? T-Jun demanded. What needs to be done, sir? Minyu replied calmly. All crew to escape pods. I'm going to show these lizards what humans think of bullies. Minyu know, but the Defiance was already accelerating to full speed, its engines burning bright. The Kuradish flagship fired everything it had, but Minyu kept coming, weaving through the weapons fire, closer and closer for the Thenari. Minyu whispered, for the Sebok, for humanity. The Defiance smashed into the Krish flagship at full speed. The explosion was massive. Brief new star in the darkness. When it cleared, both ships were gone. The Kuradish fleet hesitated, shocked. No one had ever done something so insane. All ships attacked. Tigan ordered, make Minyu sacrifice count. The battle became chaos. Human ships darted between the larger Kuradish vessels, too small and fast to target easily. Sun Wu and LT Unk and GTS fighter squadron screamed through the debris field from the destroyed ships, using the wreckage as cover. Target their sensor arrays. Yuna's voice directed from the flagship. Blind them. Sunu dove at a Kuradish cruiser, her weapons blazing. The enemy ships sensors exploded under her fire. Around her, other fighters did the same. The Kadish ships began firing wildly, hitting each other as often as they hit the humans, but the cost was terrible. The frigate Morning Star took a direct hit and split in two. The destroyer Thunder vanished in a ball of fire. Human ships were dying, their crews with them. On the Nari Prime, deep in his underground shelter, old Heian listened to the battle through the communications relay. He heard the explosions, the urgent transmissions, the death and courage happening in the sky above. They're dying for us, he whispered to his great-granddaughter. The humans are dying for us. Velora, who had been paralyzed with fear for weeks, suddenly stood. Then we should fight too. Grandfather, we've been hiding. We've been waiting to die. But if the humans can fight for us, we can fight for ourselves. She ran to the communication console and opened a planetary broadcast. Aleri, this is Vora. The humans have come. They're in the sky right now, giving their lives for us. We cannot let them fight alone. And GT fight back, sabotage the Kurdish ground forces, hack their systems, show them that we are not defeated. The message spread across the planet like wildfire. In occupied cities, the Nari civilians began resisting. They sabotaged Kurdish equipment. They overwhelmed small patrols. They sent targeting data to the human ships above. The Kurdish, who had thought that the Nuri pacified, suddenly found themselves fighting on two fronts. In space, the battle raged on. The Kurdish were powerful, but they were confused. Their enemies wouldn't retreat, wouldn't surrender. The humans kept coming, kept fighting, even as their ships were destroyed one by one. They're insane, a Kurdish officer reported to his commander. They just rammed us with a damaged frigate. They're not even trying to survive. Kurdish commander watched his tactical display with growing unease. Yes, they were winning. They destroyed 8 human ships, but they'd lost 23 of their own. This wasn't how wars were supposed to work. Enemies were supposed to value their lives, to retreat when losses became unacceptable. These humans didn't care about losses. They only cared about winning. Sunwa's fighter was damaged now, one engine sputtering, but she kept flying. She'd lost half her squadron. Donga's fighter had exploded 10 minutes ago, and she'd watched him die, but she couldn't stop. Wouldn't stop. Target that cruiser. She ordered her remaining wingmen, the one firing on the Nari evacuation ships. Sunwoo will never get through its defenses. Then we die trying. She pushed her fighter to maximum speed, dodging fire, weaving through destruction. Her weapons locked on the Kurdish cruiser's engines. She fired everything she had. The cruiser's engine exploded. It began listing, unable to maintain orbit. It would crash into the planet's ocean within hours. But Sunwa's fighter took a hit. Alarm screamed. Her cockpit filled with smoke. This is Sunwa. Park to all human ships. My bird is done. It's been an honor flying with you. For theory, for humanity. For the Nari transport swooped in its tractor beam, locking onto Sunwa's dying fighter. Human pilot, we have you. Hold on. The transport pulled her free, saving her life just as the Kurdish had once saved her great-grandfather. The circle of kindness continued on Tijun's flagship. The situation was critical. They were down to 4 ships, the Liberation, the Storm, 1 frigate, and the flagship itself. All were damaged, but they'd destroyed or disabled 30 Kurdish vessels. The enemy fleet was breaking. Sir, the Kurdish, they're retreating, the tactical officer said in disbelief. It was true. The remaining Kurdish ships were turning away, jumping to hyperspace. They'd had enough. They couldn't understand an enemy who refused to be beaten, who accepted losses that should have been unthinkable. The Kurdish commander sent one final transmission. You're mad, all of you. No prize is worth this cost. You're right, Tijun replied, but we're not fighting for a prize. We're fighting for honor, for loyalty, for the debt we owe. That's something you'll never understand. The last Kurdish ship jumped away. The battle was over. The silence that followed was profound. On Tijun's bridge, exhausted officers stared at their screens. They'd lost 8 ships, thousands of people. But they'd won. All human ships damaged. Report, Tijun said quietly. The reports came in. Every surviving ship was heavily damaged. Casualties were severe. But they'd done it, the theory home. World was free. On the planet's surface, the Nari emerged from their shelters too. See the human ship still in orbit. Battered but unbowed, in his bunker old. Hyan wept openly. They came, he said. They remembered. After 50 years they remembered. Felora held her great-grandfather's hand. They did more than remember grandfather. They showed the galaxy what gratitude means. Tijun opened a channel to the planet. Then Ari Prime, this is Admiral Tijun Han. We came to repay a debt. I'd say we're even now. But honestly, we'll never be even. What your people did for us 50 years ago started something that changed who we are. You taught us that kindness matters, that life is worth protecting. Thank you for that lesson. Han's voice came through, old and broken but filled with emotion. Admiral, you've repaid the debt 1,000 times over. You didn't just save our world, you showed us that the universe can still surprise us, that goodness exists even in dark times. As rescue operations began, as the wounded were treated and the dead honored, word of the battle spread through the galaxy. Every species heard the same impossible story. 12 human ships had challenged 40 Kadish vessels. 8 had been destroyed, but they'd won anyway through pure stubborn refusal to give up. 20 years had passed since the Battle of Broken Chains, and the galaxy was still talking about it. Sora Choi stood at the window of the Galactic Assembly Hall, watching ships from 100 different species arrive for the emergency session. She was older now, her hair touched with gray, but her eyes still held the same fire that had driven her to help the Nari all those years ago. Ambassador Choi, a young aide, approached. The assembly is ready for you. Sora nodded. She was Earth's chief ambassador now, and what she said today would shape humanity's future. Behind her, the door opened and another figure entered. Velora, now Prime Minister of the Nari Union, joined her. Are you ready? Velora asked. The theory had aged gracefully, her blue-gray skin marked with the patterns of wisdom. I've been ready for 20 years, Sora replied. Let's show them what we've built. The assembly hall was massive, with representatives from every major species in the galaxy. As Sora and Ira entered, conversation stopped. Everyone knew why they were here. Sora stepped to the central podium. 20 years ago, humanity did something that shocked the galaxy. We risked everything to save a species that had helped us 50 years before. Many of you called us insane. Some called us noble but foolish. All of you watched and wondered why we would throw away our future for an ancient debt. She paused, looking around the chamber. Today I'm here to show you what that foolish decision has created. The display activated, showing images of the human Nari alliance, advanced ships bearing both human and Nari designed space stations where both species worked together, colonies where children of both races played together. The theory shared their technology with us. Sora continued. Their science, their medicine, their knowledge. In return, we provided military protection and our gift for rapid innovation. Together, we've become something neither species could achieve alone. A reptilian ambassador stood. This is impressive. But why call this emergency session? We're in LT, UNC, and GT, all aware of your alliance. Because Vora said, standing beside Sora, we're not here to talk about ourselves. We're here to talk about the KTH people. The chamber erupted in murmurs. The Karath were a species enslaved by the Kuradish Empire 15 years ago. Everyone knew about them. No one talked about them. The Kuradish have held the Karath in bondage for years, Sora said. They've strip-mined their worlds, forced their population into labor camps, and destroyed their culture. We've all watched it happen. We've all done nothing. The Kadish are too powerful. Someone protested. We can't risk war with them. Sora smiled coldly. 20 years ago, everyone said the Kuradish were too powerful to fight. We proved that wrong. Today, the human Thanari Alliance is declaring war on the Kadish Empire. We're going to free the Karath and anyone else the Kuradish have enslaved. The assembly exploded into chaos. Ambassadors shouted, some in support, many in horror. The Kadish ambassador, who had been sitting quietly until now, stood with rage on his scaled face. You dare, he hissed. You think your little alliance can challenge the Empire? We have hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships. You had 40 ships at the Nari Prime, Sora replied calmly. You lost, you retreated. You learned that we don't quit. Now you're going to learn another lesson. Humanity doesn't forget cruelty, and we don't tolerate bullies. On the observation deck above the assembly, Captain Hana Lee watched the proceedings. She commanded humanity's newest ship, the Dreadnought Hyans Promise. It was named for the Thanari scientist who had started everything, and it was the most powerful warship humanity had ever built. The Nari technology, human determination forged into something unprecedented. Beside her stood Admiral Jin Soo Park, now head of the Alliance military forces. He was the grandson of Sun Wu Park, the pilot who had fought so bravely 20 years ago. They're terrified, Jinsu observed. Not of the Kadish, of us, of what we represent. Hana nodded. We're the species that doesn't forget kindness. That means we also don't forget cruelty. Every species that ignored the Thanari, that looked away while innocents died, they're all wondering if we'll remember that too. Back in the assembly, Ira was speaking. Now we understand your fear, but understand this. For generations, the galaxy has operated on a simple principle. The strong do what they want, and the weak suffer. Species help each other only when it's convenient, only when it's profitable. She looked around the chamber, her large eyes meeting others. Humanity taught us a different way. They showed us that loyalty matters more than convenience, that debts of honor must be paid even at terrible cost, that kindness is not weakness but the foundation of civilization. The KTH saved my people once, a small voice said. An ambassador from a minor species stood trembling. 300 years ago, during a plague, they shared their medicine freely. We've prospered since then, but when they needed help, we did nothing. We were afraid. Another ambassador stood. The Thanari helped my species develop faster than light travel. We never thanked them properly, and when the Kesh attacked them, we looked away. We're ashamed. One by one, ambassadors began standing, species after species, admitting their debts, their failures, their shame. The galaxy was built on forgotten kindness and unpunished cruelty. Humanity and theory we're offering something different. We don't ask you to join our war, Sora said. We don't need your ships or your soldiers. We're telling you what's going to happen. The Alliance is going to free the Karth, then we're going to free every other species the Kuradish have enslaved, And when it's done, the galaxy will have to decide what kind of place it wants to be. The Kurdish ambassador stormed toward the door. You'll regret this. The Empire will crush you. You said that 20 years ago, Sora replied. We're still here, your fleet isn't. The war that followed lasted 3 years and it changed everything. The human, the Nari alliance moved through Kuradish space. Like a storm, they didn't fight the way the Kuradish expected. They didn't aim for conquest, they aimed for liberation. Hana's ship, the Hyan's Promise, led the assault on the KTH home world. The Kurdish had fortified it heavily, but they'd learned nothing from their defeat. At the Nari Prime, they still expected enemies to value their lives more than their principles. All ships, this is Captain Lee, Hana transmitted. Remember what we're fighting for, not territory, not resources. We're fighting for people who can't fight for themselves. We're fighting because it's right. Now let's show them what that means. The battle was fierce, but the Alliance had learned from the first war. They combined the Nari technology with human tactics, creating a fighting force that was both brilliant and relentless. And this time, they weren't alone. Species across the galaxy, inspired by humanity's example, sent what help they could. Food, medicine, intelligence. Not military support yet, but acknowledgement. Recognition that what the Alliance was doing mattered. When the KTH home world was finally freed, the survivors emerged from labor camps to find human and Dari soldiers weeping for them. Liberation wasn't just military, it was personal. A Kith elder approached Hana after the battle. Why? She asked simply. We've never met your species before. Why risk so much for us? Hana thought of her grandmother's stories, of the Seabuck and the Thanari, of Sun Wu Park flying into impossible odds because someone did it for us once, she said, because kindness is meant to be shared, not hoarded. Because if we only help people we know, we're not really civilized. The war continued. The Alliance freed world after world. The Kuradish Empire began to crumble, not from military defeat alone, but from the example the Alliance set. Enslaved species rebelled, inspired by the knowledge that someone cared enough to help. On Thanari Prime, old Hyan's monument was expanded. It now included names of every human who had died in the Battle of Broken Chains, every Thanari who had fallen in the Liberation Wars, and a new inscription written in 100 languages. They saved us without obligation. We saved them without hesitation. This is what civilization means. In the final year of the war, the Krish Empire surrendered, not to occupation or conquest, but to transformation. The Alliance demanded only one thing: freedom for all enslaved species and reparations to those they had harmed. The Kuradish, broken and humbled, agreed. The galaxy gathered again at the Galactic Assembly. This time, newly freed species stood among them: the KTH, the Vex, the Moranti. Dozen of peoples who had been chains now stood free. Sora, now old and tired, but satisfied, addressed the assembly one last time. 70 years ago, the Thanari faced a choice: help strangers or follow the rules. They chose kindness. That single choice rippled through time. It saved 3,000 humans. Those humans had children. Those children remembered when the Nuri needed help. We came. That act inspired others. It showed the galaxy that loyalty matters. She paused, looking at the representatives of freed species, today we stand at another. Joyce, we can return to the old ways, where the strong exploit the weak and kindness is rare, or we can build something new, a galaxy where debts of honor are remembered, where cruelty is challenged, where kindness is repaid in unthinkable ways. Bellora stood beside her friend. The humans taught us something profound. Civilization isn't measured by technology or power. It's measured by how we treat those who are vulnerable.